Hello familiar, I think this one's a pertinent one because it keeps on coming up, but today I wanted to discuss the inner character of a person rather than the exterior. I guess this one's kind of around the health side, or the picture of health that we see in society, rather than directly associated to the way you look. I guess it follows up to the story of David, which was the last podcast, funny enough, but that was, more about being overlooked. But have you ever felt overlooked? Actually, I think I've already done this one, so we'll subpar, we'll get rid of it, we'll cancel this one.
With a joyful grin, ego knit, our hearts unite, founders of love shining bright. We're Team Weird, and that's alright. Peculiar souls dancing in his light.
Hello familiar, I think this one's a pertinent one because it keeps on coming up, but today I wanted to discuss the inner character of a person rather than the exterior. I guess this one's kind of around the health side, or the picture of health that we see in society, rather than directly associated to the way you look. I guess it follows up to the story of David, which was the last podcast, funny enough, but that was, more about being overlooked. But have you ever felt overlooked? Actually, I think I've already done this one, so we'll subpar, we'll get rid of it, we'll cancel this one. No, we will not cancel this one. So inner versus outer, I guess the story of David. So, the question was, have you ever felt overlooked? But I want to put it into more of a health spin. Have you ever felt overlooked because of the way you look? Your outer exterior, what we determine as fit and healthy these days, is usually a picture of what's sexy. Less clothes, more skin, more muscle, less fat, all these kind of things are like the picture we put out into the world. So have you ever felt overlooked by your appearance? I want to dive into the reasoning for why we are so focused on the exterior, why we put health, fitness. So my description of health and fitness, I have been a professional bodybuilder. I won my pro card, and I have pushed myself to extreme limits of looking good, and to the outside world I would be healthy. Now I would be healthy, but then I would be healthy and everyone's thinking I'm extremely healthy, but if I upload a photo here and here at the push level that I was pushing myself to, I was near, quite close to pushing myself to, I would say, death. Like I sent my mum a photo, that one I put up here, and she was like, "Are you okay?" Not "well done," because I was literally pushing myself to death. I remember going to the gym probably 3 or 4 days out from flying to where my show was, and I went to the gym, tried to get out of the car, couldn't lift away, couldn't do anything, and so I started to return home. I felt extremely sick, so I pulled over. There was no food in me. I had no food left for the day. I hadn't picked up my food, I think it was, or I'd eaten all my food, so there was just nothing in me. It was like whatever I was putting in me was used by my body almost instantly, so I was just running on empty, or running on like minus a tank rather than full of a tank, minus a tank. Like if you had one side is your petrol tank, it was the other side, and we were at 0 on the other side. That's how I was running. And I remember pulling over and just dry reaching, like trying to throw up, gagging, and there was just nothing. And I just laid on the side of the road with my car door open, the car that I was driving on, until I could muster up enough energy to crawl into the car and get to where I was going. Now, I got home and everything was okay, but that was a week out from, I guess, the Worlds that I did. And at the Worlds, same thing. I remember not being able to have the energy to walk from where I was staying, which was maybe a 10-minute walk, to the hotel where everyone was staying and the competitions, and where my friend's room was that I was competing with, that she happily let me use the room. But walking from point A to point B felt like I was going to die. Walking from her room to the stage, which was maybe 500 meters to a kilometer, felt like, yeah, it was teetering on death, like I was walking the tightrope of, oh, I might not make it. I might not make it through this day. And I look back at that whole experience, and I have photos of me standing next to the guy who won, and then the people who were competing. I didn't even make top 10, but I guess I was the picture of health. You know, I had pro card, then I went and did this, and I pushed myself to limits, and I look back and I was like, oh, I was terrible. I got no place. I did nothing. But they were calling me Shredder, which is like off Ninja Turtles. Shredder is like the evil guy, but the Shredder was like, in this case, it was like there was no fat on me. Like you could see my anatomy, you could see the veins, the muscle tendons, you could see everything. And I was struggling, like I was cramping, I couldn't touch my toes, I was in pain, I was still pumping heaps of stuff, but to the outside world, I looked fantastic and I was great. But I couldn't even, I remember, like I thought I was putting on a brave face, but I was gaunt. I looked sick. I wasn't even, I picture, no offense to these people, but I picture some athletes I see, specifically women, who push themselves to, you know, extreme leanness to where they look like sick. They look like they may have cancer or something, and it was just disgusting. But in that moment, I was, from the outside, healthy. I got like sponsorships, I was signing stuff, I was taking photos, like it was absolutely ridiculous. And I feel like I was looked at for my appearance. At the time, the job that I had was all about appearance. Yes, I had to take action and do actions, but mainly it was just people to pay to look at us, pay to look at me. And then it was the same with bodybuilding. And I was the picture of healthy. I was coaching people, and there was people asking to push them to a level, and it was not health. And I feel like my view of health is skewed, but what's your view of health? Like, do you look at a pastor who is not thin, and do you assume that their life is not healthy? Do you assume that they don't have balance? Now, I know for a fact that anyone, well, it's not anyone, but most people can get thin if they push themselves hard enough, but it's also a lot of people have underlying issues that they may or may not be aware of, where they cannot get their body to drop fat. So you might not, by the outer appearance, you may look unhealthy or have a belly or be bigger than normal, but underneath that you may have issues that you don't know about. Particular foods can make people put on fat. Particular issues or underlying issues can make people fat. Hormones can make people look and appear unhealthy and fat. There is many things. The fact that someone's injured and can't train. Obesity is a disease, and yes, we can align and move our decisions, but sometimes it's out of our control. But when you look at a pastor or leader, do you take their appearance? Because I can think of many pastors that I see, and I can think of many fit ones and extremely fit ones where you're like, oh, this guy's jacked, this guy's fit. And then you look at the other ones where you're like, oh, they're not fit, they're not jacked, they're not healthy. And is that the case? Are they not healthy? But if you look at their spiritual life and what comes under them and the anointing on them, like all you're doing is comparing. You're comparing you to them, and you might be overweight or struggling with something health related as well, and you might not think anything of it. So maybe it's just the mindset that we have because of what we see on TV, what we see advertised, what we see in the world, that we're comparing ourselves to. The level I am at physically right now, if I looked at myself when I was 16 and 18, a scrawny little person who struggled to get abs, if I looked at myself now, I would be like, wow, that is amazing. I've always wanted to that. I can't believe I got there. But my inner comparison to where I have been and how I have looked, even though I was unhealthy, is like now I'm like, oh, I look horrible, I'm fat, I'm terrible, I'm fluffy. I'm not extremely lean, I'm not extremely fit. Also, the picture, the outward appearance is people would say I'm fit and healthy and do everything right. But if people didn't have the background that me and my wife had and ate and trained and lived the way we live, with the lack of sleep and the overworking that we've done, and then the training, and then eating out, like if people did that for the last 5 years that we married, they would be, I'm sure, extremely obese. But I feel like we have put in the work, no matter how hard, to gain the muscle which benefits us so that we can do certain things that some people might not be able to do. And I am sure that if someone came to me and said, I want to do this, that I could figure out a way to get them there. But would it have balance? Would it be sustainable? Would it be for a purpose? Do they need it? I believe we all need to be healthy, and I'm trying to be smarter, both inner and outer, have balance. So it's not just appearance, but it's hard not to focus on your appearance. Like the fact that I have a beard and my hair is not cut and it's a bit messy, people say that I'm tired all the time. I'm tired, I look homeless, whatever. I just haven't had time to go to a hairdresser, and I don't want to do it myself. And it was for no purpose but our outward appearance. For example, if you wore dirty tracksuit pants everywhere, people would have a certain opinion of you. But if you dress to impress, you wear nice clothes, And I'm not talking about expensive brands or anything like that, but if you wear clean, nice, put together clothes, people treat you differently. We have friends that are known for wearing beautiful stuff. We have friends that are known for dressing with class and opulence. And then there's other friends that are trying to hang on to their youth. And then I'd say I'd sit somewhere in between of like my mindset hasn't progressed with clothing like my age has progressed. And I guess it always, the story that comes out, and the one that I shared before, is David. David is the pinnacle of the story, not because of Goliath and everything he did and the decisions he's made. Let's just focus on the appearance of, he was the least, he was the smallest. The Bible doesn't say he was the ugliest of the family. It actually says he was all good looking, but from the outward appearance, he was wearing scungy old clothes. He was living in the hills. He probably stunk. It was probably covered in crap and blood and just stuff from sleeping on the ground and outdoors. His hair was long. He probably had a beard. He wouldn't have looked great at all. He wouldn't have smelt great at all. But are you looking at other people and the same thing? I will meet, and I can't help but mention, but I realise that it's probably not a thing of like people who look a particular way or have a particular health level or smell a particular way. That is not for me to evaluate. That's for God to take to them. And maybe God's showing me something, showing you something in the annoyance of someone by the way they look, smell. Did God overlook David because when he came out he stunk? Or Samuel, who anointed him? No. Because he was small? No. What if he was fat? He wouldn't have. He assessed all the sons of Jesse's hearts, and there was like fire and water and power within David that he saw. It wasn't about his outward appearance. It wasn't about his smell, his clothes, his dirtiness. And I guess on the other one I shared what is like God looking at. But what are we looking at? What are our priorities? Are we assessing people? And are we assessing ourselves? Are we comparing ourselves to the outward world? I have recently updated my social medias, but I've noticed just yesterday that like the social medias of Instagram and stuff, they've started putting back in fitness stuff, and it's just guys that are muscle bound and naked and women that are wearing next to no clothes, and it's like prevalent. It's always on there, and it doesn't matter how often you click on it and say not interested. It's like another way to get it to that point. It's another way to get there, another way to, like, it always circles back around, and it's just the devil trying to put that doubt of comparison, that overwhelming thing that you've struggled with or dealt with, trying to realign your values. And how can you assess someone from the outer appearance? By what they drive, by what they wear. You really have to speak, communicate, hang out with. I don't always think that you need to necessarily have conversations with people to feel or see their heart. Maybe that's just me, but I can have an appreciation and a love and an understanding of a person and who they really are without knowing absolutely everything about them. Like I can I can have a real love for someone, a real care for someone without knowing much about them, because God has, maybe it's because I lived through the outer exterior, so now I bypass that outer exterior. Now I've been programmed in a world that is all about appearance. You get paid based on your appearance. You get trophies based on your appearance. I've been programmed in that world, and it's slowly unprogramming, but I find myself assessing pastors and leaders by the way they look, and I have to catch myself, because it's not a comparison, but do they look at me and see the way I look on the exterior and then assume all the negatives about my spiritual life, about my balance that I have done because I was always focused on the exterior? Or are they looking at my exterior and seeing my tattoos and seeing my past? That's another thing, like the outward appearance. If someone has tattoos, what do we think? I find myself when I see, a Christian with tattoos all over him, like, oh, but is that okay? And then, like, if it's a saved Christian who's a leader, I have tattoos all over me. I have like skulls and death and roses and the phoenix, and I have all these things on me, but I still find myself assessing, and I'm getting better at catching my thoughts of focusing on the outer. But what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on people's tattoos, the way they dress, the way they look? And if you are, what are you comparing it to? What thought process does that lead to in your mind? Where does that take you? The Bible says in 1 Samuel 16:7, but the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature. So he was short as well. For the Lord sees not as a man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Which is just, it says that we will focus on the outward, we will focus on height. And do you have that thing of, like, when you see people who are of a different height to you, whether smaller or taller, do you evaluate them? Like, tall people, I'm always like, give us a big hug because I love them, they're tall, but I wouldn't want to be that tall. And why wouldn't I want to be that tall? And then small people, it's always like, oh, you're so small, you're horizontally challenged. Both of them, tall and short, both horizontally challenged, but I'm right in the middle, so I'm good. But who says? Who says that tall is bad and short is bad and middle is good? Who says? Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. It shows in Psalm that David desires for inner purity, highlights the importance of focusing on our hearts in our relationship with God in life. Lord, clear our hearts of all the gunk, of all the evaluations that we've created in our own mind. For true worth is found in you, so show us true worth in others. Everyone has value. Everyone has value and inner value. God has placed something inside everyone that you don't have because you're not them. So we have to realize that. So are you focusing on the inner or the outer? Where should you be focusing? When you focus on the outer, what does that cause in your mind? Where does your mind go? Couple of action steps. 1, self-reflection. Assess your motives and what you're focusing on. 2, are you focusing on the character And what are your virtues? Are you focusing on identity, outer or inner? What are you focusing on? Number 3, engage in spiritual discernment, as in ask God what your focus is on. I know that I focus on the exterior and the values and the health and the way people look, but I need God to help me when I don't know that I'm doing it. I know that I do it, but I don't know when I'm doing it. 4, surround yourself with strong relationships of different people, different looks, different backgrounds, different views, so that you know that just because a person looks a particular way doesn't mean anything. 5, practice gratitude for your inequalities. So we got reflect on you, others, and the way you think. Focus on character. Identify the virtues that you evaluate people on. Engage in spiritual practices. Ask the Lord to help you with how you assess people and why you assess people, and guide you. Create relationships with a diversified group of people, and practice gratitude for the inner, not the outer, of yourself and others. Dear Lord, I thank you for this. I thank you that you are helping us and reminding us that the inner is more important than the exterior. Give us a hope today. Give us a purpose today. Give us the answer today. Give us more knowledge, experience, and purpose with looking at the inner, not the exterior. Help us focus on the inner, not the exterior, Lord. Show us where we're focusing on the outer. It is not by the way someone smells or looks. Help us see that they are important to you, that you love them, that, the way we assess people in this world is not from you, that you focus on the inner. Help us see what you've put in people that we can draw out and learn from, Lord. Help us see people in a different light. Everyone, Lord. I ask for your grace as we face others today, tonight, tomorrow, ongoing, Lord. Change the way we think, change the way we see, change who we are from the inner to the out. Help us not reflect and assess and rate people based on their appearance, Lord, because you focus on the inner. Help us focus on the inner. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Thank you all for listening and watching. Be blessed. God bless you. God loves you. I love you. Remember, he made you perfect the way you are. We don't need to compare ourselves to others. Stay weird. He made you perfect the way you are. And then keep on shining your light. Keep on shining your light. Keep on shining your light, because the world needs it. Remember, like, share, follow, donate, all that good stuff. Anything you can do to help get this out into the world and make it something would be greatly appreciated.
With a joyful grin, ego knit, our hearts unite, founders of love shining bright. We're Team Weird, and